Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss a video released by the government which is intended as a simple guide to exporting for British-based businesses, but is in fact a stunning indictment of the Brexit trade barriers which have been erected. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I couldn't not do this one, could I? The Cabinet Office has released a video, a very cheery video, lasting about 3.5 minutes, which details all the steps you need to complete in order to export goods from Britain to an EU country. And before I go through the steps that the video details, I want to do something that the government would absolutely not do. Explain how it used to work beforehand. So if we'd never left the Customs Union single market, if you wanted to export goods to the EU, you would maybe need a T2L document. Depends how it travels. Ordinarily, to transport goods from one EU country to another, you need no documentation, just send it. It's no different to sending goods to another part of the same country. But as Britain is an island, some goods might need checking for origin, as is typical at EU seaports, because a ship comes in, well, we need to know where it's come from, don't we? You know, if it's travelled by land, we know where it's come from, that country that stuck to us. If it comes in by sea, well, where's it come from? So for some freight, maybe you would have needed a T2L document. And all this document does is make clear where it came from. That's it. That was the absolute maximum needed for exporting goods from Britain to the EU before Brexit. And in most cases, you didn't even need that. You need nothing. Now let's see what we have to do, courtesy of the Cabinet Office. So, and none of this was needed before, by the way. I'll emphasise that. None of this was needed. So the first thing it mentioned is the need for customs agents. And on both sides of the transaction, you don't just need a customs agent. The person you're trying to send it to in the EU does. You know, do we need customs agents to handle the movement of goods from Britain to another EU country before Brexit? No. This is a first step that's needed, and customs agents need paying. So it's increased costs, both direct and indirect, associated with this trade now. Frankly, the customs sector is the main area of growth on our sheeple-infested plague island right now. Second, both sides then, on both sides of the transaction, need EORI numbers, which is basically an identification number for the goods. Pain in the arse for both sides wasn't needed before. And consider this because this applies to several stages. It is a necessary pain in the arse at the British end, but at the EU end, it just makes trading with businesses in Britain more awkward than other European countries, because they don't have to do it with other European countries, with the possible exception of Belarus. So you can see how EU-based businesses are reducing the amount of trade they do with Britain right now, because it's like you trade with even Switzerland, it's not in the EU, it's less hassle than dealing with Britain. You know, it's a pain. And this EORI number is not as straightforward as logging onto a system and asking for a number to stick on your consignment. That's time-consuming bureaucracy that's needed every time you export or import something. Third, it talks about establishing Incoterms, which is a friendly way of saying navigate the complex trade laws of the import and export market in forming an agreement of responsibilities for exporter and importer. Couldn't tell you how long this takes exactly. It's a process that can be set up for future use if you consistently export to a particular EU country. But it'll be very different if you export a range of goods and to a range of different EU countries, to a range of different customers. Remember that there's no such thing as the single market for us anymore. We're outside of it, so it doesn't exist for us. If we export to France, it's different to exporting to Belgium. Different rules, different documentation sometimes. Fourth, it then breezily suggests that they give their EORI numbers, invoices, purchase orders and transportation details to their customs agents. Like this isn't another time-consuming step that will cost them money they didn't have to spend before Brexit. Fifth step's a good one, checking that the goods meet rules of origins. It explains this is needed for tariff-free trade. Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, just make sure make sure that it's checked for rules of origin, then it's tariff-free. Oh, brilliant, lovely. Do I tick a box? Used to, not anymore. You know, there are a couple of wrinkles that it's downplaying. First, it says you will need the evidence in place. Oh, yes, you will. The thing is, the evidence could be quite onerous. The more complex your product, the trickier it will be to get this evidence. And time is money. So this is a time-consuming and expensive step that wasn't needed before. Again, if you only export a small range of products, once you've got the documentation sorted, then it's fine for future. It's the same documentation for that good, those goods every time you send it, assuming the rules don't change, at which point it might be different. But if the exporter, is sending a larger range of especially complex products, then you're in for a bad time because they have to do it for every single one. And that's if the product, when you've gathered all this evidence, and remember, that will mean contacting your suppliers, if you manufacture, contacting your suppliers who might be the other end of the world, and it's not their priority to pass on the documentation you're after. It could be quite tricky. But let's say you gather it all together, right? You may take a lot of time gathering it and then find out it doesn't meet the rules of origin requirements. So you've wasted a lot of valuable time, and you still have to expect the importer to pay tariffs, which will mean, of course, covering it yourself in most cases, because they may decide it's not worth it. Well, I'm not paying import tariffs. I'll just buy it from this country next to me where there's no import tariffs. Or documentation, or hassle of any kind, or delays. Sixth, making sure the goods comply with EU labelling rules. Another step we didn't need beforehand because our rules were the same. This is also a timely reminder of the problems with changing our rules. Right now, the Tories are baying for more divergence with the EU. Rishi Sunak says, throw all these EU regulations in the bin. Liz Truss is not far behind. Now, this has a trade cost. The greater the difference between our rules and those of the export market, the EU in this case, the more time-consuming and expensive that process of exporting becomes. This cannot avoid making our goods less competitive and, as a result, lowering our GDP. 7, it discusses the coordination needed between the customs agent, that wasn't needed before, well, for EU trade anyway, and the haulier. Another step that delays the transportation of the goods and adds extra costs. That wasn't needed before. And imagine if you've got a bit of a difficulty at the weekend, if your lorry driver's trying to sort something at the weekend, well, the customs agent's not there, they work Monday to Friday. Well, then you're stuck there all weekend. But it references the GMR number, which I've talked about recently because the government system for generating it keeps crashing. When it does, the process becomes more time-consuming and complex. 8, it then talks about the work that the EU-based customs agent needs to sort out. This is not only another time-consuming process that wasn't needed before, but an expense for the importer. That importer may not be interested in that expense or hassle and decide to stop trading with Britain, as many have. Some EU-based businesses have been doing this ever since we left. 9, it talks about the process for the lorry driver hauling these goods. I notice it completely misses out the step which involves being stuck in a lorry park for hours, sometimes days on end. Getting stuck in long queues on the approach to the port, don't mention that. And not being allowed out of your cab for a piss. I mean, Tuesday was particularly bad because it was baking hot and they weren't being provided for as far as I could tell. I've talked recently about how the government have issued a contract for a disaster relief group to provide emergency water and things like that. I didn't see any evidence of it happening on Tuesday. So I'm presuming that contract's not yet in force. 10, it sneakily adds in import VAT towards the end, as if that's perfectly normal. Well, it is now. Wasn't a feature of Brexit. The UK government threw that one in as a bonus. So then the EU had to follow suit. So we get it both ways now. So 10 steps, some of which are very onerous, none of which were needed before Brexit. A simple guide to exporting. It may be a tidy explanation of the various steps. There's nothing simple about the process. They may as well have called it the 12 labours of Hercules. And remember that all of this process is made much worse under the following conditions. First, if your product is complex, that means it's made up of a lot of materials or parts, and those materials and parts come from around the world. The process is more awkward. Second, if you export a large range of products. Third, if you export to quite a few different EU countries, rather than just one or two. Fourth, if you export to a large range of customers. Fifth, if your goods need to arrive quickly. Any of these conditions makes an already unnecessarily bothersome process much worse. This is why Brexit cannot stand the test of time. Our country is in the hands of people who are acting for those who profit from its destruction. Much like climate change being driven by those who profit from our own destruction. But it can't last forever. And unlike with climate change, economic change can be reversed because the economy is a man-made fiction. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.